Welcome, men around the world, probably in all 2 countries, but that's okay because we're just starting. Welcome to Chasing Man. I am Leah McAwee, your host, and I am lucky enough to have one of my very dearest, longest friends that I've ever had joining us today, Mr. Nicholas Radovanovich. How are you, buddy?
I'm very well, mate. How are you? How's it all going?
Pretty good. I'm pretty happy to have you on board. Let me give a little intro to everybody, just a little bit about yourself. So
Okay.
when I say Nick is one of my longest lasting friends, it's because he's still alive, but we actually met each other way back. I think I don't even know the real age, but like 3 or 4 at kindergarten, I think, Nick.
Yeah, I think I've got a photo of us in kindergarten together. I think I must have been 4. So that's like at least when we were 4, but I think before then, yeah, we were in the same kindergarten together. So
there we go. And then like twins separated at birth, twins with white chins.
Yes.
We left each other's sides until I think, and this is another guess, 12 or 13?
Yeah, so until we went to college.
Yeah, it was
so
college.
13, yeah, so Tawa College, we went there, and so we went to different primary schools, and then, met up again in college, and then, we have this weird situation where we sort of basically are together for a couple of years, then we go out and do our own thing, and then we sort of come back again for a few years.
And
it's
I
sort
still
of 3 or
remember
4
the
years.
conversation at college is like, hey, did you go to Mungavin kindergarten?
Yeah, which is always a difficult question to ask anybody of which kindergarten they went to.
Yeah.
Because one they can't remember it, and B, if you get it wrong, you look a bit weird.
And then so from there, Nick and myself, we lived together on a couple of occasions in Wellington, New Zealand, and then in Bristol, England.
Yep.
And still friends to this very day. So let me tell you a bit about Nick, guys, and then he can sort of make sure that I've got it right and add little pieces on.
Nice.
So Nick, not only is he lucky enough just to be a good friend of mine, he has won the New Zealand Comedy Guild Award for Best Comedy MC 5 times.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
And last year won Best Comedian. He has done a whole lot of comedy writing in New Zealand for probably more than this. Well, I know it's more than this, but one popular one I know was 7 Days. He was involved with Just for Laughs, The Night Watchman for Fox Sports in Australia. Recently was on The Narrow World of Sports 2019, and now on their podcast based out of Australia. And he's also just started up this really cool vlogging YouTube channel where he does a vlogging series catching up with comics of New Zealand. So we'll drop that on the end of the podcast today so you guys can catch it because it's hilarious. But what have I missed, my man? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
That's about it, mate. You've covered it well. I feel like I'm in a job interview. I also work well as a team, and I'm a perfectionist. Isn't that what you're supposed to say in a job interview? No. So that's about it, really. Just been doing comedy for stand-up comedy for since 2005, June the 1st, 2005. So what's that? Almost 15 years. And
wow, already?
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Because when we lived together, I don't think I was doing it. In Bristol. No, I don't think I was.
No, you
doing
had just
comedy.
started, remember? Because I had been to a couple of your gigs, and there was that one gig one night where that woman was just tearing you.
That's right.
Bar in Bristol, and
That's right.
I think thereafter we might have gone out and had a few drinks, And
Yes.
then one of my best memories of Bristol is sitting very, very hungover in a park on a hot, sunny Bristol summer's day with a
Yeah.
guitar, thinking that I was on your level of comedy and singing comic songs all afternoon. It was hilarious.
Mate, I don't remember that, but that might be a good thing. That sounds. Were we together? Was it me? How much had you drunk?
No, we were both definitely there. It was on that
Oh,
Bishopston Road. Is it Bishopston we live?
Yeah, so up on Melbourne Road.
Was that little
yeah.
like that park up on the hill, the bank?
Oh yes. I think it was. Yeah. Bishopsdale or Bishopston Park or something like that. But these are finer details that is only really relevant to us. But yeah. So that's yeah. So did 15 years doing comedy, and yeah, got lucky enough to do it all around the world, and gigged in Holland and Hong Kong and Australia, New Zealand, UK, America. So yeah, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just what I do now, which is it's cool, but it's a bit weird.
And I think this is a really cool podcast for me to do because we grew up with each other, we went through a lot of the same, but different hurdles potentially in our lives, with dealing with, I don't know, social scenes or even within our own group that we used to hang out with, like just really awkward situations sometimes, right?
Yeah, so growing up, so for those of you who don't know sort of our background, so me and Liam grew up in a town called Porirua, which is just out of Wellington. Mainly, especially when we were growing up, was mainly Pacific Island, Māori demographic, and we lived, I would say, in the poorer area of Wellington. So it was sort of we didn't have heaps growing up, but we just sort of made the best of what we had. And but I would say that we as white boys growing up in Porirua, we were the minority, and that we were the minority in that area, in that group. So it was very interesting growing up in that time, and you sort of had to adapt to your environment, I think. And that's, I feel, for me, that's where my sense of humor was developed, because I wasn't the biggest of guys, so I had to sort of have some form of like, please don't beat me up. So making people laugh was my first kind of defense mechanism that I would say that I learned and have dealt with. And so that's what we had to grow up. And then also as well, when we grew up, it was sort of, I don't know, like 9-to-5 jobs, always fall back on a trade, get a government job, get something that, has good healthcare, because, whatever, or insurance or whatever. It was all about getting that sort of job, so to speak. There wasn't, I don't think, there probably were, but I don't remember, especially at school or college or anything like that, or even in our circle of friends, sort of teaching us other ways of like entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff. As I'm now older, I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't realize that those people in my life were carving out their own business and doing their own thing, which would have been really beneficial. But yeah, it was sort of this whole thing. So when we were growing up, we were the minority, sort of this 9-to-5 workplace situation. For me, it didn't really sort of thrive. And even right from a young age, I don't know if other people will know this, that this is how far back me and Liam go. And this is how much we wanted to sort of be our own bosses and to do like out of the box thinking type situation, is that we started up our own swim school. We wanted to start up our own swim school. and because we were both like, you know, just as you do when you're 19, 20, like doing sort of odd jobs and trying to you know, do things. And Liam was in our area especially, he was a renowned swim teacher. Like he was like, I was pretty good at swim school teaching, but Liam was like, he was this is how good Liam was. He taught, I sent my nieces to go swim with Liam because I thought that he would do a better job. So my own family members went to Liam. That's like, they didn't even come to me to learn how to swim. And so Liam was really good. And yeah, we went on to start up our own swim school, and we're sort of combining our entrepreneurship with our little sense of humor. So we decided to call our swim school the Titanic Swim School, forcing people to swim since 1912. And weirdly, that got knocked back by the Porirua City Council.
It was hilarious, man. I had totally forgotten about that. That was, yeah, that actually shows like your humor levels back then. And like, for those that don't know Nick, he's like, if you see his comedy stuff and you've only seen his comedy stuff, that's what he's like all the time. It's just dry wit, laughs, fun times. Like, it's just awesome to be around Nick. So it's actually funny, Nick, that you say that stuff about where we grew up, because I never really thought about it in those aspects. It was very blue collar. Like, if you got a white collar job, like, you're banged. It was like, you're making a load of money.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it was. And so, and there was like success stories and things like that from where we grew up, and but sort of, yeah, in and around our friends and family and stuff, the only really success stories were sort of in like the blue collar situation. So they would either be like, you know, really successful, you know, like being really successful in their trade, but having a huge business within that, or
maybe some sports people along the way.
Yeah, sports people along the way that we grew up with, and you know, became like All Blacks, or there was like a definite pathway for them, or it was like well, it was just celebrated more, I think, and there was just more of a natural pathway. But for me, especially, and I can only speak for myself, I would always wanted to do something with humor, and I thought it was great. I thought radio was the way forward, but it turns out, you know, it took me about 25 years to realize it wasn't. And yeah, so, but there was no there was sort of amateur dramatics, and there was kind of like improv groups and all that kind of stuff. But even in New Zealand, stand-up comedy wasn't even a thing really. And so it wasn't until I went overseas that I learnt, just there's other ways to do things. And there was like sort of, and this was before the internet, right, as well. This is why your group's so good, Liam, is because, and it's I think it's really needed. And there are ways to connect with people all around the world who have similar interests to you so much easier than when we were growing up. So so there wasn't any, like in Porirua and Tawa and stuff, I think our close group of friends, that was my like comedy group, if that makes sense, because everyone in our group was like always making each other laugh, and I still to this day think like all you guys are funnier, and if not funnier than me, then but could make it if you guys wanted to in comedy, because everyone's got that timing and sense of humor and stuff. But I think that growing up was, for me, that was my little group. But man, if I didn't have that, boy, you know, you talk about depression and sinking into different darker states of mind and things. If I didn't have that outlet to be able to do what was like innate in me to naturally be funny and naturally take the mickey out of things, then I don't know, I'd hate to think, you know, what that would have been like. But now there's groups and there's things online and stuff which you can really get involved with pretty quickly and pretty early. And and that's why the UK for me was really good, because I learned how to do stand-up, and I got onto their circuit, and it became a job. And then now coming back and doing my own thing over here in New Zealand and Australia and stuff. It's super fun, and it's a part of who I am now. And if I wasn't doing it, and this lockdown period and this quarantine period has really taught me, and I've been chatting to other comedians about this as well. It's like we didn't realize how much it was in us and needed in us to go out and perform, to get that instant feedback, that and the outlet of comedy and making jokes, how much we needed that to be a good person, so that we could then come back to our families and be all that we could be to our families and our closest friends and our community. And yeah, that's what I've sort of learned. When you're not doing what you're absolutely passionate about, and what you is, for whatever reason, whatever you want to call it, inner calling, your voice, or whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call it, if you're not doing that, then you start going into a downward spiral as opposed to an upward spiral.
And I guess it shows your resourcefulness of the times, right? Like doing what you're doing right now with your YouTube vlog, like, because that's you, like, use the terminology, but getting your fix.
Absolutely. And we talk about it's like the comedians will talk about, like, we feel like we're coming off drugs, because every night for the last 15 years, I would say at least 3 or 4 times a week, you would be getting a hit of gratification, satisfaction. I mean, not all gigs would go well, as you have seen, but at least you'd either win or you'd learn. You would be like, you'd win and you'd get that and go, oh man, that joke really was amazing. That joke killed, or you like, or you died on your butt, and then you just sort of go, well, I don't want that to happen again. But either way, you felt alive. Like, you felt like, it was like highs and lows, but it still was like, you felt something. Whereas for me, I never really felt that. Like, I used to do business computing. That's also, we were at the same bloody university together.
We were.
Well, I'll call it university, but it's CIT, I think. This is how good mine and Liam's tertiary education is. 4 or 5 years after we finished whatever certificates, degrees, diplomas and stuff that we got.
I didn't finish.
Mate, neither did I. I was 8 points short, or 8 credits short of my diploma. But you know what? It was such a bad, it wasn't a bad, yeah, it was bad. They actually shut that tertiary education down. So even if we had got the things of like, oh, we were at this particular tertiary education place, that it wouldn't exist. So it would still be.
You can't even find that. I've tried to look back and like tried to get my credits, and they just don't exist anymore.
I feel like we were scammed. It's the first ever tertiary scam. But anyway, so I can't remember what we're talking about there. Oh yeah, so I did business computing, and so the reason why I left is because I wasn't really enjoying the study side of it, and I thought, well, maybe if I was out in the workplace, maybe if I was earning money, that could be, that was a thing. And I got a job. I was a software technician and a hardware technician for this place called Infinity Solutions, which is a really funny name now that I think back of it, because I only lasted there 6 months. because now there's like, oh, how long were you at Infinity? 6 months. I think that's the only person to ever say that. But I was earning really good money, and I would say honestly, for about 10 years there, it was the best money I'd ever earned for over, like, in that 6 month period, for like the next 10 years of my life. I'd never earned that much money. But I was driving to work, and I was literally going, if I could crash the car right now and spend a couple of weeks in the hospital, that would be amazing, because I wouldn't have to go to work. Like, it got to that situation where I was just like, on Monday I had this not sort of churning in my stomach and all that kind of stuff, and I just was like, get this horrible feeling of like, I just don't want to go to work. And now it's like, I guess you would call it anxiety and whatever you want to call it in there, but it wasn't anxiety like I was afraid of the job, or that I or anything like that. It was more like, this goes against everything,
lack of
molecule,
fulfillment or something like that.
well, not even that. It goes against every molecule of my body in terms of what I should be doing.
Yeah.
And you know, and I could do it. I could do it. I was like, you know, I'm okay at this, but I was never going to be amazing at it because I wasn't passionate about it. I didn't want to. I was literally looking at the clock, and you know, it just wasn't a good thing. And I feel like that for me was a big thing. Of money is great, but it's like, it's not everything. And then I sort of made a pact that even if I have to start like at the bottom and only getting like $10 to do whatever I want to do, I'd rather do that than get paid, you know, thousands of dollars and hate it. And so, yeah, that was a big thing. Another turning point for me was, I hope you don't mind us chatting about this, was when our mates died in that car accident in Waihi. That was a huge turning point for me. So we were probably about 21, 22, I think.
Yeah,
maybe
something like
20.
that. 20?
Yeah, and
I think it was closer to 20.
I think so, 20. Yeah, and so we had 3 friends who passed away in that car accident, and that for me was not only, you know, you makes you think about life, but what it did with me is it kind of, out of respect for those boys, I sort of made this promise that I would almost not live life for them, but I would sort of not waste my life, if that makes sense. So I felt with this computer situation that I was into, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So let's not do it. Let's just do the things that you want to do, and let's do the things that you're passionate about, because life is short, and I'd rather take a risk and, like, you know, have an ultimate high or an ultimate low than to just sort of exist.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was a big thing for me. And so whenever I'm sort of feeling like, oh, I don't want to do anything, or I feel like the path is too hard, or no one's done this before, so it's like, you know, it would just be easier if someone else could just do all the work for me, I sort of have to kind of go, you know, come on now, like, let's, yeah, you never know, you just never know. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that I've sort of gotten into, tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff that help me pull out of those kind of feelings, or those kind of moments where it's just easy just to sit for a couple of weeks in bed and you know, and not do anything, or just cruise and not do the hard yards. So
Yeah, totally,
but,
man. And there's so many people in the world that get trapped in that, right? So, I mean, it's wicked that you've got those tools in place to be able to, you know, get yourself out of it.
and it's not to say that kind of, you know, life or job or anything like that is bad, because sometimes as well, like, you just have to sort of, there's like a means to an end. So for me, I had to do some jobs just to survive and get, you know, work and things like that. When I was starting out in comedy, it took me 5 or 6 years. I had to do another job as well as my comedy, but at least I had that, even if it was only a couple of times a week, or even if it was, you know, an hour a day or whatever. I had that little thing that I was working on for me and that I was really passionate about. And I feel like that is, yeah, that's sometimes all you need to sort of get by. And it's just whatever you know, especially as we're getting older and family and kids and stuff, it's not easy just to sort of like quit your job and, you know, decide to try to get into Cirque du Soleil when you're 50 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes sometimes there's things where you're just like, you know what, that is nice, but sometimes you have to be a little bit realistic sometimes. But I don't know, doesn't stop you, you know, joining your local amateur circus class or something. I don't know what is a bad analogy, but yeah. But yeah, so I think about 3 years ago, yeah. So there's 2 times. So I worked in radio for 10 years. So when I went to the UK, I worked in radio, and I thought I was really passionate about it. I was really like, I'm going to be the best at this.
And
And
you were very good, I might add, my man. You were very good.
oh, thanks, mate. Yeah, no, it was because I was passionate about it and I was really into it. I was like, yeah, this is good. And I ended up going from literally being the lowest of the low. Like I drove around in one of the radio station cars, giving out Black Thunders, giving out stickers to people. That was my job for a year or so, and then I became like the deputy program controller of the station, and then I got headhunted to go to London, and I was like working in this big station in London, Heart, and I was working with Emma Bunton from the Spice Girls, and Leicester Square movie premieres were happening downstairs, and we're interviewing like Hugh Jackman and all these big kind of celebrities, Sir Michael Caine, all these people were just sort of popping in, and it got to this point where I had sort of made it in this world, but I had spent 10 years climbing the ladder, the radio ladder, and only to find out that it was on the wrong wall. And so I was like I was literally at the top. There's only one other job that was the Capital executive producer, I think, in the UK. That's the only equivalent or job that was better than mine in terms of what I was doing in the UK, from Porirua, where we came from, to like literally being at the top of the game in the radio world in the UK.
Mate, you had made that white collar dream come true.
That's right, which we all got told, and we all got thinking this was it, because it was like earning good money, and I had a driver taking me from my apartment. It was at the bottom of the Thames, past the London Eye and through Trafalgar Square and into Leicester Square, and all the big sort of iconic London things. Was like, that was my, what would you call it? Not a play. Well, I guess it was a playground, really. It was just sort of like, this was my city. This is what we were broadcasting to. Got invitations to all the parties and all that kind of jazz, and then was just miserable, and was just like, I got that same feeling I got from going into that computing job. I was starting to get that on a Monday, and I started to get that, oh God, I just don't want to go in. And then that's when I got into my comedy, like really hard. Like I was just like, no, I started to get like to a semi-professional level where I was getting paid for what I was doing, but my job and work was holding me back. So if I had quit my job, I could do more gigs. And so I was doing early morning breakfast radio with late night stand-up for about 9 months, 10 months. And then just something had to give. And because I was more passionate about the comedy, the radio just went out to the wayside, and I sort of ended up, kind of getting. I got fired from that job, but it was more of a mutual. It was a mutual thing. I wanted
a mutual.
It was almost like you're in a bad relationship, but you want them to say we're breaking up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. You didn't want to make that call. And so, they made the call, and then I became a professional comedian from that day, by the fact that I'd lost my job, not because but then it became this necessity. I was like, okay, well, you've got to make money from this because this is your only job. So that not feeling, and then I started feeling good, and that was fine. The other time when I had that not feeling, or this like, what is life all about, was when I just took every job. I was working loads and comedy and everything, and I was just like doing quizzes, and I was just again creating that money, like working that money to get myself and my wife and my little boy our first apartment in Auckland in New Zealand. And Auckland in New Zealand's very ridiculous high, like everywhere in every major city is ridiculously high cost of living and cost of apartments. And so I just had to work my ass off to get to the deposit to get the apartment. And then I did that, I got that, and we got this apartment, and we've been in this apartment for like 6 weeks, and I got my little family in there, and it was supposed to be the greatest feeling of my life, because it's like, I've done it. Not only have I proven people wrong that you can't make a living from comedy, but I've actually bought an apartment with comedy money, telling jokes, all that kind of stuff. And then I was like, I had this massive, I would say now it was depression. I would say now, but in it, I was like, I'm just feeling a bit down. But it was about 3, 4 weeks where I was just like, yeah, I was just on the couch, just couldn't really get up, couldn't really do anything, and having depression, or yeah, I'd say it was depression now, but yeah, and then going up and telling jokes was like the hardest thing, like to be a comedian and to have that is like, ugh. It was pretty hard, but
Is it pretty common?
yeah, well, yeah, well, because it's highs and lows, because it's like it is like a drug. So when you're on stage, it's the best feeling in the world, but when you're off it, you kind of like, it's hard to live life because not you're not the center of attention, and you're not, so you have to have sort of balances and things like that. There are definitely loads of mates of mine who sort of struggle with the highs and lows of it. But I'm very lucky that I think for me, of where I came from and also my family and who I'm surrounded by, it's all pretty normal. So I have that sort of, and I got into the game late as well, so it's not all I've known.
And
So
maybe I know you're doing a lot of work on the side now as well. Maybe a lot of that stuff helps to give you a little bit more balanced, huh?
yeah, oh yeah, totally, absolutely. So the reason why I felt that way is because I'd achieved everything really. I was married, I had my little boy, I had my house that I owned, quote unquote, the bank owned, and I owned, I gave them some money so that I could pay them back. And I had everything, and it was just like that same feeling again. It's like, well, what is this? I've achieved the goal, I've achieved it, and now what's next? And there's nothing, and there was nothing in the horizon. I was like, oh, and I just felt like, well, what is this going on? And then I was like watching like loads of Tony Robbins YouTube videos, and like I was literally typing in motivational things into YouTube and just sitting on the couch and just watching these motivational things and just like going, what? Trying it and like going, yeah, nodding along to the things and go, yeah, I should try that. I should try that. But never actually getting around
Self-development,
to
I
do
think
it.
they call that.
Yeah, self-development and all that stuff. And I was like, but I just didn't really get to me. And then I remember watching, for some reason, I remember watching this interview with this UFC fighter called Conor McGregor. And he was just so confident and just so like, was back and just knew, and he somehow knew his like he was doing these things where he was like seeing in the future like what he wanted and getting it, and even to the point of like results and fights and stuff. And I just became fascinated with that, and I was just like going, how is this guy so confident? And what, and I want some of that confidence. So I started to then follow people like him and other great people who are greats at their game or their sport, or whether it be Michael Jordan or business, like whoever it may be, like a business person or whatever. I just started to sort of follow some of the things that they were into and what they did, and then started to sort of mimic some of the things that they did, and like pin like what do you call it, cherry pick some of the things that I would like, that I could do, that I thought, oh, I could start doing that, or I feel like that would benefit me. And then that was about 2 or 3 years ago. And then I started this thing where my comedy started getting better, and I started becoming a better dad, and I started becoming a better friend, and in my community, I started becoming like a little bit better, and then just started to sort of spiral up to the point where I was thinking of, I had the talent and the skills to do the comedy, but now it's like, okay, I've got the top 2 inches, I've got the mentality of this as well. And then when people were trying to bring me down or trying to like say you can't do that, knowing the skill sets and the different mindsets and the different things of where they are in their own personal development, that they're not going to bring me down, because it's like, I can see you trying to bring me down, is that it's like, well, is everything okay in your house?
Yeah.
Because your mentality is why do you want to bring someone down when it's is probably because you feel like you get a little bit guilty that you're not doing the things that you could be doing. And when you start having that mindset and start having that thinking, then you start believing, and then when you believe in yourself, man, it's just, things just start to happen. And that's what's happened for me personally. And you said before about winning those comedy awards and that kind of stuff, and it was unthinkable that 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago when I decided, okay, I'm going to be, not only am I going to be good at this, I'm going to be the best at this. And then, you win the, best male comedian in New Zealand, and then winning the best MC 5 years, and then getting job offers in Australia and of television shows, because I truly believe it's because then I started to believe in it, and I started to believe that I was worthy and I could do it. And that's only a little bit of it. I honestly believe it's like the last 4 or 5, maybe 10% of it, and the rest is all the work and the learnings and all that kind of stuff.
For sure.
But that last 10%, I've worked on that as hard as if I was working on my jokes or if I was a professional athlete. But I didn't realize you had to do that.
It's funny that you're talking about this, because I was reading or discussing it with somebody earlier in the week, and it was more reference to happiness in life. And in happiness in life, you think you're on the right mountain, and you climb to the top of the mountain, and you get to the top and you look around, you're like, oh, wow, this view's a bit shit. Oh, yeah. It's that mountain that I see over there on the horizon. So then you walk down and you climb the next mountain and you get to the top, and lo and behold, it's the same problem. You get to the top and you look around, but what you're pretty much saying is you've got to the top of the mountain now, and now you're sort of just soaking up the view and, giving yourself permission to realize that, wow, I'm worthy of all of this, man. I've got to soak this view in and take everything that I can from this view and feed on that, because, I might be at the top of the mountain, but it doesn't mean the actual journey itself is finished.
No, that's it. And I feel like, so what really changed for me was my wife. So my wife is a yoga instructor, and so she's introduced me to a world that I'd never in Porirua, and I joke about it. Like, I joke about it in my comedy. It was like growing up in Porirua, like mainly Pacific Island Māori cultures, quite blue collar. We didn't have yoga growing up. We didn't have meditation. We didn't have yoga growing up. Like if in Porirua, if someone asked you to get into a downward facing position, you're in an armed robbery. Like it was this kind of, it was just such a different world to us. And so when she sort of started to introduce these different ideas to me, like, mindfulness and breathing and mind and body, being connected, and the fact that if you don't look after your body, then your mind's not going to be clear, and vice versa, and that kind of stuff. And so she sent me to this thing, and this is what really changed my life, I think, is she put me towards this thing, which was happening. It was like this local group. They were doing this thing called emotional goal setting. And when you come from our neck of the woods, if you talk to our mates and stuff, if you said that you're going to an emotional goal setting night, you just wouldn't. Years later, you'd just get ripped for it. You'd just be like,
dude, can I just pause you for 2 seconds? But this is exactly the reason why I'm starting a men's group focusing on this stuff, because that's that whole male dominant, male macho bravado bullshit that oh, what? You're going to do that woo-woo stuff. What's wrong with you? Are you a pussy? What's going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it's so good, because now I feel like I'm more stronger and more manly, I think, than I've ever been, because of what I'm doing now, because I'm stronger and fitter because I do more. I work out more, and I'm more strong in my mind, and I can put my shoulders back and banter with the best alpha male that there is, because it's because of who I am and what I am now. But it's only because I did all these things. So this emotional goal setting night, so when I went along to it, it was really funny, because even I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm just going to be the only guy there, and it's just going to be awkward, with all the girls there.
But was that because of you, or was that because you were worried of what others were going to say?
A bit of both, I think. But then for me, and this is why comedy's been such a good thing for me as well, is because now even if it's a really bad idea, or if it sounds like it's awful, I do it purely because I think, oh, there might be a routine out of this. There might be some comedy in this. So I'll go to things just because it's like, it'll be a laugh, and then I can literally make some money off it, or like, or have an experience, or at least even have an opinion on it, just so that if it does come up, and I could write a joke about it, or I could go, oh, this is what I think about it. So anyway, there's a lot of that going on, and then. And to be honest, I was right. Like, it was super awkward. I was the only guy there. It was airy-fairy. Like, it was like, let's, all the things I hated, which was like, let's just get out of our bodies and start like wooing and chanting and stuff. And I was just like I was like face palming, going, oh no, it's like looking at my watch, going, there's another 2 hours of this. And then but then once we got out of like that half an hour of like getting out of our bodies and that kind of stuff, then they did this thing called emotional goal setting. So rather than, which is what I'd struggled with before, it's like always good at setting a goal and always good at like going, I want to achieve this, and then working hard to get to that particular thing. But what this was is like, well, what do you want to feel? What's your emotion that you want to be most of the time, right? And so I sort of played around with a few words, and it ended up just being happy. Like, that was like happy, that was the word that I was sort of concentrating on. And then they broke it down. It was like, okay, what things, what aspects of life and all that kind of stuff, and all aspects, career, family, all that kind of stuff, what makes you happy? What makes you happy all these times? And so I worked it out, and it was this long process. I ended up figuring out this uncanny thing of, for me, it's these 4 F's. So I'm going to try and remember them now because it was a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure I can get them. So for me, fitness, family, funny, and focus. Those are my 4
what was
things.
that? Fornicating.
So
sorry, you cut it out.
So fitness, family, focus, and funny. Those
oh
are
my gosh, I wasn't
4
joking. I thought you seriously said that, and I thought you were making it like
a joke. Yeah, no, funny. Oh, that's hilarious. Fitness, family, funny, and focus. Those are my 4 things. So whenever if you think of it like an umbrella as a power source, and that top little bit is sort of the energy. Those strands, those are little umbrella wires, and if I've got all of those kind of firing towards that, then the umbrella opens, and it's, I'm like, wow, this is so cool, right? And so for me, if I don't do fitness, I get into a bit of a slump. I get into I get a little bit hazy. I just don't feel good. I just feel lethargic. I don't feel happy, right? And so fitness is a good one. So I'm like, okay, cool, that's nice. Family, when I'm obviously with my wife and my kids, and we're doing good family things, and we're spending quality time together, that makes me happy. Funny, if I'm doing something funny, so if it's like writing comedy, or like hanging out with some mates, or doing a project that involves writing funny scenes or sitcoms or whatever, then I'm happy. So that's good. And then focus. So for me, a focus is like having a goal, like still having a goal, still having an achievable thing that I want to do this in the next couple of years, or I want to get on this program, or I want to, do this particular thing that's challenging. When I have all those 4 things, I'm honestly the happiest person in my life. I am happy because that is my life. Yeah. But why it's been so important to me is that it's made me make some really hard decisions. It's made me some really hard decisions following this happy emotional goal setting with the 4 little prongs to it. So I got offered 2 or 3 jobs in the last 2 or 3 years, which could have been, and well, a lot of people would have taken them. So there was this big major show in New Zealand called that was brought from Australia, called The Project, and I got offered the I didn't get offered it like, here it is, but it was like I was in the running of, and if I had have said yes and really wanted it, there was a good chance I could have got it.
Yep.
The head writer for this project news show was 5 days a week, really great money, guaranteed security for my family, all this kind of stuff. And I was like going, well, do I do this, or do I want to do, other things that I really want to do? So I then went into this emotional thing. Well, what makes me happy? If I do this job, then I could do the fitness before or after work. But if I did do that, I wouldn't be able to see my family, because I'd have to, with the traffic, I'd have to get up at like 6:30 in the morning. And
Which
then I'd
is
have to work.
really early for Nick Rado, guys. Really.
It's really early for me. Yeah. It's really early for me. I have to get up really early to beat the traffic, go do like 8, 9, 10-hour day, whatever it was, because the show finished at 7:30 p.m. So I'd have to then either go and do my exercise in the evening, which I wasn't getting home till 8, 9, 10 o'clock. So I wouldn't see my family. So it's like, oh, okay, well, that's not a good thing. It was funny kind of, because I was writing jokes and doing funny things, but I wasn't doing it for me. I was writing for other people. So I felt like I was giving away that little emotion there, or giving away that little thing that because I enjoy the performance side of it. The focus, there would have been no focus really, no goal setting, because I would have just been like, well, I'm just turning up and I've got this one show that I've got to do every night. And it's like, oh God. And
those
then
other 9-to-5 jobs that you hated.
And exactly. And then but the good thing, it would have been security for my family, and, the week would have had weekends and, that kind of thing. But then I was thinking, well, to get that other happiness back, I probably would have done some gigs in the weekend. And then, I don't know, it just, so on paper, and my friends and family just said, you're an idiot. Why didn't you take the job? Why didn't you take it? And so, but that for me, it was like a no-brainer, because it all came back through this sort of happy filter, and it made a really hard decision for me quite easy. And and I've been super super happy with this little situation, and it's good. But the quarantine stuff has really it turned everything upside down, in terms of like, it's really challenged this little filter, because that was in a different world, and then now we're sort of into like a little bit of survival mode. But as long as I continue to have this little filter and know what makes me happy, then at least if I could get 3 out of the 4 or 2 out of the 4, I know what I need in my life to make me happy. So I can do a survival type job and then get some cash otherwise. So I don't know. That's just a thing for that I went through, and then since then I've just been like, just working on it as like fitness, and like any fitness, you have days off, and you have sometimes you need a rest day as well. Sometimes you need sometimes you just need to not be so hard out on it, I think.
Man.
But
sure. There's days you've got a carb load and sit in front of it.
Yeah, well, that's it. Sometimes you got to have 2 days, right? So sometimes you got to watch mindless reality TV just to appreciate the works of Carl Jung.
But there's a word that keeps coming up for me, man. It's your resilience. Like, you're really resilient. Every situation you've been in, and I know of many more situations as well, that you've got yourself in a place where it's not optimal. What do? You get through it. You work through it. You haven't stayed at anything. You're always progressing and working towards those 4 Fs, no matter what it is, no matter where you are. You haven't, I hate to use the words, but you just haven't rolled over and started to die yet.
Yeah. Can you still hear me, bro? Because my batteries, is it all good?
Yeah, it's a little echoey, but...
A little echoey, yeah, right. I'm just trying to figure out a way to charge my phone.
It's good enough. Low. Don't you worry about it.
Okay. So basically, Yeah, resilience. Yeah, I think it comes from like work ethic, I guess, and I don't know, like the problem. So it's a cliche thing, right? It's not how many times you get up. It's not how many times you. That's it. That's not how many times you get up. That's the thing. No, it's not how many. You fall over 7 times, you get up 8. But it's hard. It's hard because when you fall over the 6th time, it's like how many more, and you don't know that there's only 8. That's the hardest part, right? And that's what I find. That's what I find is like even in this quarantine situation, it's like things will probably be all right the next couple of weeks or 3 weeks or maybe even 2 months. We don't know. Maybe just a year, maybe half a year. And we'll look back at this time and we'll go, what were we worried about? We should have just, should have just taken it easy for that 3 months or 6 months. That was hardly anything. Why were we so worried? But it's the unknown. It's like when we're very good at having a measurable, like if this plus this equals that. And I'm like everyone else. I'd love to be able to go, well, if I put in this many hours, then I guarantee the success. But I can't. Yeah, it's just not a thing. But it's just, I don't know. There's just different things that I've picked up. Like there's some stoicism is really good. A good thing that for me that I've gotten into, and I think other guys should get into, and girls should get into too. But I think it really resonates with guys a lot, where it's all about, like, for me, I'm doing stoicism with a little bit of Brene Brown, which is a little bit of vulnerability. So it's not as so harsh. It's not so like, shoulders back stoic type thing. But
Sure.
if you actually read a lot of stoicism, it's gotten a bit of a bad rap in terms of being, it's without any heart or without any feeling, and that's wrong. But yeah, I don't know, just little tricks of the trade and stuff that I've learned to get
Hey,
back
dude,
up.
can I just pause you there again? Because we had a great conversation, whatever it was last week, just catching up. And something that really stood out for me, and I loved the way that you worded it, was your maybe theory. Do you want to talk about your maybe theory?
Oh yeah, I'd love to say it's mine, but no, it's I think it's from I'm going to say this wrong, but Taoism, which is spelled Taoism, and it's the Chinese it's a Chinese proverb, which is and a lot of different religions and philosophies touch on this kind of thing, but I feel like this is the best way to sum it up. So basically it's the maybe proverb, and it's this Chinese farmer who he basically had like this stallion, this prize stallion in his stable, and it broke away and ran out of the stable and into the night, and the next door neighbor came across of the farmer and said, oh, that's really unlucky that your prize stallion is run off into the forest there. And then the farmer goes, maybe. And then the next day the stallion comes back and it brings back 7 or 8 other different amazing horses. And then the neighbor comes over and goes, oh man, how lucky is that? The stallion's just brought back all these horses. You're going to be a rich person. And then the farmer goes, maybe. And then the next day, trying to break in one of these new horses, the farmer's son, breaks his leg falling off. And then the neighbor comes back and says, oh, it's really unlucky, mate. Your son broke his leg. It's really unlucky. And then the farmer goes, oh, it's maybe. And then the next day, the Chinese army comes in. They're looking for young, healthy men to go off and fight in this war that 95% people don't come back to, but they can't take the son because he's got a broken leg. The whole principle of the story is we don't know what is good and bad, and we can't judge whether things are good and bad because it could be good and it could be bad. It may be bad, and it's a whole principle of maybe. And me and my wife have this huge thing of remember that when bad things happen, but also trying to remember that when really, really good things happen too. So it does help. It does help. So in times like this, for me, the quarantine and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, this is such a horrendous thing that's happened across the world, and it is horrendous, but maybe it's something that we all needed. So maybe it was time for me to reset and to start my comedy channel, or to reconnect with my family, or to learn how to bake bread, or whatever that situation is. We don't know what that is yet, but in hindsight we'll go, you know what, maybe it was actually a good thing, because we reset the planet, and we've now given ourselves another couple of 100,000 years on this planet, because, you know, the fish stocks have replenished, or the dolphins have come back into the hub, you know, whatever it is. Or we've changed the way that we're flying now, or we've stopped the disease now, or it could have mutated where it wiped us all out, or, you know, I don't know, whatever the thing is, we don't know that yet. But that's what is a really great thing that helps me get through a lot of stuff. And but there was the but sometimes you're like, oh, I cannot wait to learn the lesson that this is trying to teach me right now, because I can't see Jack at the moment. But, you know, because sometimes you're in a problem, you just can't see that maybe situation, right?
But that's why I wanted you to tell that story, because, you know, I deal with so many clients, and they have this story, they create this story, and, you know, unfortunately that story is a lot of the time focused around the negative. Well, what if maybe it wasn't going to end up negative? What if maybe it's going to end up positive, right? Just that little flick in the switch to decide to choose to think about it in a positive manner rather than a negative manner, or, like you said, sometimes the opposite. It's I always say to clients at work, this stuff is simple. It's just sometimes not that easy.
Yeah, and a lot of it for me is sort of, cognitive brain therapy and NLP and all that kind of stuff. And I've always been quite optimistic in certain things, but even I get like, oh, woe is me. And that's where I think me and my wife are very good, is we sort of lift each other up and bring each other out of funks or whatever when we get into it. And if you don't have that, then that's fine. That's what things like this are. Like, that's what groups like, you know, what you're starting are, and have friends and whatever. And just also, as you're talking, I think you've touched on this, on like meditation and all that kind of stuff. And meditation is really great, but sometimes, you know, for whatever reason, people don't want to get into it. But anything can be meditation. So what meditation is just basically you doing something that enables your brain to just do it and just be totally in that thing. So playing the guitar, if you're a guitar player, that is meditation, because you're concentrating just on that one thing. Playing the piano, playing football on a Tuesday night with your mates, like for half an hour, it's all of a sudden your marriage problems aren't a thing when you're, you know, trying to get a ball off somebody, because you're just literally just focusing on that thing. Or that's why workouts are good, because like, I've got to do 10 more of these burpees, and then suddenly sometimes you're in a workout and your brain is elsewhere, and then you're not as good as what you are normally, or you don't get your PB because you're not focused on it. But any of that stuff is meditation. And just try and find whatever that is, knitting, all that, you know, whatever it is. It's just, it doesn't have to be sitting on a rock, you know, live in the Himalayas for, you know, 7 years of your life, you know, contemplating on one word or something like that, or with, you know, wearing orange garbs and stuff. It is whatever your just to make you just sort of not zone out, but it's kind of
no,
like,
I think it's the opposite, right? It's zone in. It's find that moment in time where you're present, and if your mind does deviate, you can pull it straight back in.
Yes, yeah, totally. And it doesn't, and also it's not, and not to be harsh on yourself when you don't do it. It's just the important thing is you just catch yourself. And so sometimes I'll catch myself being negative, or you'll compare yourself to somebody else, or, you know, you won't, maybe you could have worked a bit harder or do something differently or whatever. Is that don't beat yourself up over it. Just catch yourself and go, oh yeah, maybe I could do something. Or let's don't beat yourself up over it, but let's just do it from now. So it's, you know, Frozen 2 had the song "Do the Next Right Thing," and that's all you can do is just whatever that moment is next. Just that next moment, just do the next right thing.
I'm going to put that in the show notes. Do the next right thing, Frozen 2.
Frozen 2. Yeah,
hey, bud, we're
yeah.
about to run out of time on the Zoom.
Okay.
And do you know what? I must say thank you very much for being on the podcast, because yesterday was my first one. Well,
oh yeah,
my second first one. I've interviewed the guy twice and didn't do anything with the first one. But it was very structured and like asking questions, and you've pinpointed on every single one of those questions without me having to ask the question, which is amazing.
Oh wow. No, but that's why, yeah. Yes,
but I am going to get you to finish on one question. So if there's one thing that you could just say to the gentleman listening or watching or whatever they're doing, if there was one thing that has served you really well to get you through any challenges that you've sort of bumped upon, what would that one thing be for them? Dude, I've lost you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Got you. Sorry, mate. One thing. Hard to go one thing. I would say it's hard to pick one, man.
You could do two. I'll give you some leeway.
I'll try and do one. Let's go with one. Let's do one. Cold showers.
Cold showers?
Cold showers is the reason why. I've been doing it for about 7 or 8 months now. Maybe 6 or 7 months. So the reason why cold showers is for me good is I don't drink coffee, so it's my coffee in the morning. So it's like, whoa, it's a real big sort of, it gets me started for the day. There's probably all sorts of different scientific things that happen, which I have read about, but it just hasn't stuck in my comedy brain. There are definite beneficial things for it, but here's the reason why I do it and why I think people should do it and why it's been so good for me. I hate doing it. It's the worst thing of my day to go and do it. I don't want to do it. I even like 2 or 3 seconds before I jump in the shower, I'm going, I could easily just put this to hot and no one would even know. Like no one's even being accountable for this. Like, right, I can just say it that I did it and, you know, whatever. But the reason why I do it and why it's so good for the last 6 or 7 months is because when I do it, it wakes me up and it does the thing. But I've achieved right at the very beginning of my day something that I didn't want to do. And not only did I do it, but it made me feel good. And then I have achieved this amazing thing. And I'm like, well, if I can do that for things that I don't want to do, imagine what I can achieve for things that I do want to do. And then I go, I love doing comedy. I love writing down, doing stuff, or spending time with family, or whatever it may be. Then I go, and that's why it's been so good. And also the reason why it's so good is because you've already done that really hard thing in the morning. So if you have got another thing where you've got to make that call to that person to have a really difficult conversation with, you've got that technique of you just walk in and do it. And you just, whatever it is, even if you just go 3, 2, 1, let's just go do it. And then you're just in it, and then you're dealing with it, and then it's fine. And then you get out of it, and then you feel good. And that's what it is. It's like sort of, you're almost training every single day to have those difficult conversations or to do those difficult tasks. And I feel like that for me is the one thing in the last 7 months that I've gone, that's really helped. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome, because I'm a cold shower advocate as well, although I'm finding them not cold enough these days. So I've started jumping in the 6-degree lake here in freezing cold Canada. But and
Next
there
level.
was a couple of things in there that were just like so awesome. They reminded me of, like, I don't know if you've ever watched Admiral Mick Raven's 10 Steps to Better Your Life. And he always
No.
starts with, the first thing you should do in the morning is make your bed, right? Because it gets your day started, which is the same thing as the shower. And then the way you said going into a meeting, 3, 2, 1. I don't know if you're familiar with Mel Robbins' 5-second rule.
I think, is it the spaceship one or the countdown thing? Or no, it might be a different person. Yeah,
it's probably the same but different. But basically, any situation, you count backwards from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, and then you act on it. And the reason why you want to go backwards is because if you go forwards, you can just keep going 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you miss that opportunity. You miss the next ex-wife, or the job opportunity, or whatever it may be. So I love that finish point, bro. That was stellar. Hey, where do people catch up with you? Where are you on the socials?
So Nick Rado Comedian is on Instagram, or just type in Nick Rado Comedian Catch Up on YouTube, and that's about it really. And everything's there, and whatever I do, I sort of post up there, and that's where people can catch me.
That's awesome, dude. Hey, from one friend to another, and I can say this with all my heart, much love, buddy.
Likewise, my friend. It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you later. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.